Well, I hope you're ready for some unindoctrination. Tonight's going to be one of those nights of unindoctrination extraordinaire. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. And in a genre of posers and pretenders, Paladin stands apart from the here today, gone tomorrow, one-hit wonder crowd. Well-sourced, level-headed, and demonstrably reliable. He leads the charge against both tyranny and disinformation. Paladin is a true light guiding us through the storm. That's a little blurb that I wrote in request for some information on the back of a book cover, and I believe it. And he's here with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, from the White Hat Reports. Please make welcome our good friend Paladin. Nice to see you, my friend.
Hello, Jeffrey. How you doing?
You know, I was just thinking about it as I was bringing my cup of coffee, which made me a little bit late. In this world today, I almost feel guilty because I've got it so good when so many don't, but I try not to feel guilty anyway.
Well, if you can keep that attitude up, you'll be doing great.
How about yourself?
Oh, man, I am so covered up with work. There is so much going on. I was just telling somebody else today that my to-do list keeps getting longer as opposed to shorter. And so when that happens, you know you're not able to keep up with everything. I'm staying up late at night, getting up early in the morning, trying to, accommodate that, and it's still not working. But it's an exciting time.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah, this is one of those times that I think that those of us who understand what's going on, this is what we've been waiting our whole lives for. So it's exciting.
I agree with you 100%. And you've got, I was in business, but I was always just a sales guy, and I tried to stay as much out of business as I could and just talk to people and sell things and make deals. You know a lot about business. You've done a lot of work in forensic accounting and going back and dotting I's and crossing T's that sometimes people don't want dotted and crossed. And the thing that I can't figure out, and hopefully you can help me figure it out because I can't be the only one wondering this. I'm looking at the NBA, National Basketball Association. I'm looking at Major League Baseball, and it's yet to be seen what the NHL, National Hockey League, what the National Football League are going to do. But the NBA and Major League Baseball are unapologetically in your face promoting this Black Lives Matter. NBA's got it painted on their court. Major League Baseball, all the players are kneeling. And I know from a business perspective that at best, you're talking about if every single black person watched basketball, watched baseball, that's maybe 17% of the population. So in my head, I'm saying, but wait a minute. Why would they take the chance of alienating, and my math is terrible, but is it 63% or 83%, 73% of the population? Even if you could get everyone in that 17%, and let's face it, socioeconomically, that 17% is not near the market that other percentage is. So why are these businesses, Paladin, risking alienating their big market over what is admittedly a Marxist, Leninist group in the promotion of such?
The short answer is they're all part of the deep state.
Really? So
Yeah.
You're telling me that all of the major sports leagues are part of the deep state?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look at Jeffrey, go through the owners list of the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and NHL. Those are the four main ones. And what you're going to find is you're going to find guys who own businesses. Most of them are businessmen, but they also, you got to look at what business they're in. Okay.
Right.
And that'll tell you everything you need to know. And it's interesting that you start off with this because what we're seeing is we're going to see the total destruction of pro sports. We're seeing the beginning of it. It's going to happen. And here's why. Because they've signed collective bargaining agreements with the players. I'm not sure about the NHL, but everybody else has. And so what that means is there is a contracted revenue split. And so that creates a pool for the
NHL
players.
has that as well.
Okay, so it creates a a pool for the players for salaries, and that's known, as the salary cap. So what's going to happen is, as the revenues fall, and they're going to fall, the revenues are going to fall because they're not going to be as, at least from the standpoint of the people at the arenas, there's not going to be as many fans there. The NFL's talking about, well, are they going to do 25%? Are they going to do 50%? And you couple that with the fact that this kneeling for the national anthem. We went through this a couple of years ago with the NFL, and they lost fans that they are never going to get back. And if they do that stuff again, I'm done. I'm done with pro sports. I am just done, because it's turned into be a situation where they're all promoting something that I don't believe in. So anyway, if the salary cap gets reduced, what's going to happen? All those players are going to be upset, right? And now you're going to have an issue between the owners and the players, because we saw a little bit of that if you followed any of the Major League Baseball negotiations. I mean, the players, they knew they were going to get a shortened season. They wanted their full salary for a shortened season. Those numbers won't work. They won't work. So as the salary cap gets reduced, I was just reading something today about the NFL. They're thinking the salary caps are going to go from, I think it's 193 million to 175 million. So that's almost 18 million. Now that's going to start trickling down. That will be adjusted every year. So you couple this with the fact that you've got a lot of fans that are upset. I mean, I sat down and I thought, how many hours a week in the fall do I spend watching football? And it's about 10 hours on Sunday, 3 hours on Monday night, 3 hours on Thursday night. That's about 16 hours a week for 20 weeks, including the playoffs. It's about 300 hours. I'm going to have a lot of time on Sunday afternoons. I can tell you that much. I'm not going to watch this nonsense. I'm not going to watch it. And you know what especially football, Jeffrey, what it reminds me of is the Roman Empire, the gladiator games, the bread and circus, keep them distracted. And when you take a step back and you think about it, that's exactly what it's been. It's been nothing but distraction. It's bread and circus. And so that is about to come to an end. We're seeing the downfall. We're seeing the beginning of the downfall. And what this also illustrates in the big picture is the cabal, the deep state, whatever you wanted, the Luciferians, whatever title you want to give them, because they're all deserving. This shows their desperation. They are willing to kill their own to save themselves. And at some point in time, these guys are going to figure that out. These owners are going to figure that out, because businesses are going down. And if this continues to go, the bigger businesses are going down. And some of their people are going to, some of their lieutenants and sergeants in the whole scheme of things are going to wonder, what's going on? You guys are really willing to sacrifice us so you can stay in power. And it's going to cause a backlash. It's going to come.
And I see Lady Justice in the chat room. Nice to say hi to her. I enjoy your talks with her on your channel. And, Paladin, it's just amazing to me, because I was just talking with Cynthia today, and I'm saying this is billions and billions of dollars that are going to go away. I was just looking at it from the perspective of people like me. I love the NFL. I played college football. I had a cup of coffee in the Arena League. I love football. And I like watching football, and I'm really pissed off because I'm a Tampa Bay fan. Now we finally get Tom Brady, got a chance to do well, and I cannot watch it. If they kneel, I am done. That is it for me. So I'm thinking of billions of dollars they'd lose from revenue of fans that aren't going to show up. It's demonstrable from the attendance of a couple of years ago when Kaepernick started his thing, and people started staying home. You could see it in the seats, but you've, of course, hit on the deeper aspects of it. Less revenues coming in the gates means less salary. It's going to, or less money for the salary pool. It is going to drive the salary cap down. So these players, thinking that they're standing up for their rights, are really signing their own death warrants, aren't they, so to speak, as far as professional, highly paid athletes go?
Exactly. They have forgotten who pays their bill. They've forgotten who pays their salary. just like the politicians have forgotten that we're the ones who signed the check for them.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's really it's a sad thing. And when you think about, I'm never a great baseball fan, but my dad played pro baseball, and it was always part of our family. And when you see something that's called the American pastime, and on opening day, every coach and manager of both teams is on a knee, it just makes me sick. It really does.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and shame on them for trying to use a game that we all love. We all played little league softball.
Yep.
We all grew up with this game. Apple pie and mother and all that other stuff, and they're just ruining it, and that's too bad. But I think what this showing us is it's always been ruined. We're just now figuring it out.
It is, and it's funny because I worked for about 7 years for the Marriott Corporation. And when you work for Marriott, you sign, a contract of employment. These players sign the same contract of employment. And I've been able to see a few of the contracts, and they all have a clause just like I had at Marriott. If I was working for Marriott, I couldn't wear a MAGA hat. I couldn't wear a Trump for president. I couldn't wear a Biden for president button if I was stupid enough to do so. You're not allowed to voice political opinions on company time. And yet, here's these guys who are also working for an organization that are voicing and forcing us to hear their political opinions, and we're coming in to pay and enjoy a ball game.
Right. And that's exactly what we don't want to see or hear. We are there to watch the game. We don't care their political agendas. We don't care about all this other extracurricular stuff that has nothing to do with the game that we all love watching. So when they bring that in, it's going to be a problem. And the thing of it is, it's interesting because, that when Kaepernick started that 2 or 3 years ago, it was a problem, and fans left and said they'd never come back. And so now you have the situation before the season even starts. Now you've got the general manager saying, "Oh well, we made a mistake 2 or 3 years ago. We didn't react well to that, and now we know better. So we're going to do it better in the future." And the the best example I can give is the Washington. What are they called now? The football team?
The Washington football team. Isn't that great?
Yeah. I mean, come on, guys. And I thought Snyder would be the one to stick firm, and he capitulated. So that's just an example.
Yeah.
And okay, so they have the gall to think that all the Washington fans, because they're sitting there thinking, okay, well, we change our nickname. That, guess what? That gives us all this new gear that we can sell, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? The fans are not going to like that at all. They're not going to spend the money, and it's going to backfire on them. It's going to backfire, and they don't see it, but it's fine, because you know what? My Sundays are going to be freed up. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to spend time with my friends. I'm going to do things that matter, as opposed to sit and be captivated by, a 50-inch TV screen all day long. I'm actually looking forward to it. I really am.
It is going to be a great thing. And just a note on the Washington Redskins logo, I was a big football fan back in the day of the Dallas Cowboys before we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I remember Washington just had the white circle with an R in it. And then they went to that, what I would say is a majestic logo of that, Native American individual on there. And that logo was designed by a native. And
Right.
His son was just talking the other day about how sad it makes him that the legacy is going to go away. Man, if I was native, I'd be loving that thing.
Well, I was reading somewhere where back when this issue first came about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, it may have been around the same time Kaepernick started his stuff, where they took a poll and 9 out of 10 Native Americans did not want them to change the logo. They didn't want them to change it.
It doesn't matter. But you're right, Paladin. And I've known, and I love hockey. I played hockey. I love the NFL. And I knew in the back of my mind, I need to stop watching this so much. I'm watching too much. I'm spending too many hours. And guess what? They helped me out. I'm not watching them anymore. And somebody just mentioned Hollywood movies. I don't care if I don't care how good the movie De Niro's in. I'm not going.
Yeah, that's a good point because I have been thinking the same thing. I have been able to identify certain actors and actresses that if they're in a movie, I won't watch it. And a lot
Period.
of
I don't care how
times,
good it is.
yeah, a lot of times somebody says, "Have you seen this movie or that movie?" My first question is who's in it? Because a lot of times I will watch a movie even though maybe the genre is not my favorite if a particular actor or actress is in it because I like to see them perform.
Right.
Now it's going in reverse. If one of those and the thing of it is at the end of the day, if we're going to judge it on that, by the time this is all over with, we won't be watching very many movies. I
I
can
know, but
tell you
if
that
James
much.
Wood is in another one, I'm there
I'm
front
all over.
row.
Yes, I am all over James Wood's
I
movies.
am there front row. And
Right,
he's a good
John
actor
Voight.
anyway. I really enjoy his acting anyway. But it really I like the way that you turned that because are we going to miss football? Yes, some of us are. But at the end of the day, this really is a gift for us because it's allowed those of us that hadn't figured it out to see, oh, these major sports, these pro sports are deep state. And now it's going to allow us to be able to get a few more white hat reports, maybe a few more shows. And it's going to be a plus gain for the good guys in the long run.
Yeah, and it's also going to give us the opportunity to reject that nonsense that they're trying
Absolutely.
to push on us. That's what it's going to be able to do, and that I think sends the bigger message. And I know, as I did, I played football and baseball in college. I tried out for pros, pulled a muscle, and that was the end of that. And I think we all, if we play, like I say, little league or gray Y basketball or whatever you want to call it, and flag football, we all, we grow up with that. And us males, we have to admit it. I mean, I'm willing to admit it, but we live vicariously through people like Tom Brady
Absolutely.
and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and those kind of things, because that, at one point in our life, that was our aspiration. That was our aspiration, hitting the last second field goal or
Yep.
throwing that touchdown pass with no time left on the clock and winning the Super Bowl. And so uh, that's the issue that us males have to get over, because there are other things that are a heck of a lot more noble for us to accomplish besides sitting in our nice, easy chairs and watching football for 10 hours on a Sunday.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we turn a little bit towards politics, Paladin, we just got the message. I think it was on Bongino either today or yesterday, where President Trump has, in fact, I don't know if he's issued it, but he's obviously preparing to issue the executive order that speaks directly to Section 230 of the FCC rules, which specifically speaks to genres like the one that we're on, and tells them that if they editorialize or if they edit at all content, that they're in violation and they're going to lose their ability to make these billions of dollars. To me, that's a watershed moment. Am I overplaying it? Am I making it too big?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen, because whenever you have this kind of a situation, the enforcement of it is what's key.
Right.
So, are we going to see it enforced now? Things like Twitter, if they suspend Trump's account, yeah, they're gonna get attention. Our channel, your channel, are they? Nix one of our videos, they take us down. Are they going to do anything about us? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think it has to permeate all through the system to be effective. It's got to be the account that's got the biggest subscribers, the most subscribers, down to the account that has the least. I mean, it has to go all the way through the system. But this is our wake up moment. It's like, we have to recognize that these people are suppressing our First Amendment right. I mean, you can parse it any way you want to from a legal standpoint. Well, they're a private company, so they can do this and they can do that. Okay, fine, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that what are they suppressing? What content is it that they are suppressing? And what content are they letting going through? And that tells you everything you need to know. You don't need any more information than that. That should tell you. a good example was the I forget what they have a name for them, but those doctors that came out in front of the Supreme Court building the other day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you have a situation where these doctors are coming out, and all the Democrats are referring to science and Fauci and the CDC and the WHO and all this kind of stuff. How about practical experience? How about we rely on practical experience, because these are doctors that are on the ground. They are treating patients. They are dealing with this virus day in and day out, and they've come up with solutions. They've come up with therapeutics that work. So why can't we put that out? Why does that need to be suppressed? And see this,
Paladin, when was the
this
last
is
time
great.
Fauci saw a patient?
I don't. Has he ever?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great question. Or what's her name, Madam Scarf?
Yeah, Madam Scarf. What's her
Yeah,
name?
Burks. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and see, they're not. They're just puppets of Bill Gates. That's all they are.
They are puppets of Bill Gates. And, on another thing that we see with the take a knee, of course, bringing disrespect on the American flag, disrespect on the country, it also brings great disrespect upon, the law enforcement professionals that are out there. And they are the thin blue line between us and these crazy mobs. And, I've had some brushes with law enforcement officers that weren't the best, but I know that by and large, those guys and those girls out there are doing a job. They make decent money, but they don't make the money that they should make for what they do. And I think we ought to defund a lot of politicians and defund a lot of bureaucracy on the municipal levels, and then refund that, put more money into the police departments. Because this whole thing of defund the police, and then the next step is defund the prisons. Are they really serious, Paladin?
Well, they are to a certain degree, because those are the only, see, the thing of it is, those are the only people now that they can use against us, because the good guys have taken out all the mercs. The good guys have taken out all their private armies. That's been going on for 3 or 4 months. That's basically accomplished. So
whose
now,
private armies, Paladin?
The deep state. The deep state, the Blackwaters, those kinds of guys, they have been taken out of the game, and that's been going on. That started, I think, in either February or March. That started in Europe, and now it's swept through the United States. They've basically taken out all the dumbs, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, and I've been told that they have got control of all the dumbs. They actually found a few they weren't aware of once they got down there, but they have taken those out. So what are we left with? Well, you're left with the common criminal, as you say, and that are in the prisons, that will come out and work for $15 an hour, paid for by George Soros. Yep. And this will eventually
throw a brick somebody else bought.
Yeah, exactly. Throw a brick somebody else bought, or load up on whatever ammunition that they can use, Molotov cocktails that someone else has given them. And once that's all finished, they're done. I mean, it's all done. See, this is what we're seeing right now are this is the last gasps of the deep state. That's what we're seeing.
100%.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing.
What do you make of President Trump kind of sort of floating the idea of, well, maybe we need to hold off the election until it's safe for everybody to vote?
This is another Trump chess move. Okay. He wanted to throw that out there to blow them up. He's got them up in such a tizzy, and they're so beside themselves. I mean, you talk about a meltdown, and he just throws that out there to mess with them. Now, the irony about the whole thing is he can actually do that.
Sure, he can.
He can actually do that. And I was, Lady Justice and I were talking about this earlier today. And I wrote about this back in 2016 in November, or it was either November or December after the election. And I think it was the report where I put out the information about how Hillary's people tried to fix the election and the good guys hacked it back. Yeah. And what I said was, we need to reform the election system so that we have two separate elections. We have an election for state. And each state, if they want to let the illegals vote, go for it. If they want to let people vote 10 times, go for it. If they want to let dead people vote, go for it. If they want to bus people across from other states, go for it. But when we're talking about federal, when we're talking about the president, when we're talking about your 2 senators, when we're talking about your congressmen, these are people that you send to Washington, and what they do affects the rest of the country. So we're going to have a separate federal election, and whatever, and we're going to institute tight rules. We're going to institute constitutional rules. They have to have an ID. It has to be checked. It has to be per the Constitution. If they want to ruin their states, we'll get out of their way and we'll let them go for it. But when it
Absolutely.
comes to federal, because we've all seen what clowns like Pelosi and Schiff and Nadler and Schumer and some of those guys can do to the rest of the country. I don't care if you mess up New York and Illinois and New York and California. Go for it. You want to torch those states? Have at it. I'll get out of your way. But do not infringe on my rights because you have representation in D.C. that affects the whole country. So
That's a brilliant idea. I love that idea.
And it wouldn't be really that hard because, like I say, for a federal part of the election, you've got a state part and you got a federal part. And so the federal part would the ballot would be very short. Like I say, you'd have president, you would have senators, and you would have your Congress. And because everybody just has one congressional representative, and
Right.
you're probably not going to have 2 senators that are up for reelection in any one election. You're probably going to have 1. So you're going to have 3 races on the ballot. That'll be simple and easy and quick.
Absolutely. And you can have, like you said, a voter ID. Everybody's checked. Everybody gives their ballot. Now, have we, and when I say we, I'm talking about the big we, the white hats, the good guys. Has it been put in place so that the way that the election was ensured to be fair in 2016, can we be assured that it will be the same type of scenario in 2020 come November?
Well, from the standpoint of what they tried 2016, I think they know they can't get away with that again. And I think
That's
this is why the mail-in voting has come to pass. Because we knew, and I keep ruminating over whether I want to put this out or not, but we knew heading into the election that Trump was going to win because one of our guys was very good friends with a polling company who contracts with the political candidates. So those polls are private polls that a political candidate will pay for or a party will pay for. The results are private. They go to the client who pays for them. Those questions are very specifically tailored to certain things. And what happened? And this guy's saying, my guy's telling me Trump's 70% all over the country.
Wow.
So there was no question, in our minds at least, that he was going to win. We knew the polls on TV were crap. We knew they were crap. And the question was then, are we going to be able to keep them from stealing the election? And so as the story was told to me, the guys just kind of went in to look around and they found what was going on. And they're like, okay, we need to do something about this. And they were kind of surprised that once a few of the states fell, the swing states started to fall, and we all know who those were.
Yep.
They were surprised that the bad guys didn't go back in and try to fix it, but they figure that maybe they were concerned that now they were going to be watched, and if they did try to go back in and do something, they would have been caught red-handed, and that would have been it. So they stayed away. And whenever I'm feeling down, I'll go to YouTube and I'll search for any YouTubes for the media meltdown, right? And I'll watch them, and my
beautiful.
Yeah, and my attitude will soar, after that.
Absolutely. Paladin, can President Trump still lose this election?
I suppose he can if it's fair. I don't see any way. I mean, and I hate to do this because I don't want my words to dissuade somebody from voting because they think, oh well, it's no, we got this in the bag. But I think he wins in a landslide. I think he wins in a landslide.
I
I
really
really
do
do,
too.
Jeffrey.
I really do too. And we've got to get out and do our part. We've got to go vote. Now, let me ask you this. This is a little bit of a different question, probably, than what you get a lot of times. There's a certain rather large segment within our genre, this truther, quote unquote, genre, that is of the opinion that it's all fixed. Presidents are selected, not elected. You're wasting your time if you vote. And worse than that, you're complicit with the system if you go vote. How do you respond to that type of an attitude?
There's a lot of truth to that, only because in the general sense, no matter who you vote for, you're really going to end up getting the same result. In other words, they're all fixed. It's all fixed. Okay. The Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats. I mean, what we see played out before us, and if the prior 2 days with the hearing with Barr, and then the tech guys yesterday, if we don't see what's going on by now, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. But you have the Republicans and Democrats they're just two sides of the same coin. They're all for the most part, most of them are compromised in some way, either monetarily, or they're being blackmailed because they have had extramarital affairs or affairs that they shouldn't have had, or they're pedophiles. I mean, let's just face it. That's what it amounts to. So they are the ones who are put out for the public to see, but they are not the ones who make the decisions. They're just puppets on a string. So the anomaly is Trump. The anomaly is Trump. And, if you were going to pick someone, Jeffrey, that you said, okay, we need to get a president in there that can change this country. Okay. And you go down that profile, and that profile would be, he has to be a businessman, because the way these clowns run the country, they're going to bankrupt us. And they have done that 2 or 3 times. So you have to have a businessman that understands that. You also have to have somebody that's not a politician. Okay, that's not a politician, which means for the most part, they're not an attorney, right?
And shouldn't you get somebody that even has a disdain for politicians?
Well, yeah, exactly. Okay, and you need a street fighter. You're not going to be able to go in there and blow smoke up their ass and be nice and all this kind of stuff. You're going to have somebody that's willing to roll up their sleeves and go toe to toe with these people. And so when you do that profile, when you create that profile, Trump checks every box. He's the guy that needs to come along. Now, there was years ago we had talked about this, and Lee Iacocca was a guy that we had talked about.
I remember those discussions.
So it's always been sort of that profile. And I think this has been, honestly, looking back now on Trump's career, I think this has been destined for him.
It sure seems that way. It really does. It really does. Now, as we talk about President Trump, and I think all of that is right on. And the thing I like about, and I couldn't work this into my little blurb I did for you, but one of the things I really like about your information is you bring us all the information. You bring us the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you always find a way to bring it to a place where there is room for optimism. There is room for a quote unquote happy ending if we do what we're supposed to do. And I can't agree with you anymore.
Well, if we go back to 1776 and we read the Declaration of Independence and we understand the words, and we read the Constitution and we understand the words and we understand the meaning, this is a government by and for the people,
right?
Not by and for the Congress, not by and for the Senate, not by and for the special interests, not by and for the lobbyists, not by and for the bankers, not by and for the corporations. It's for the people. So if we can get back to that and take care of this country and take it back, then we win. And the thing of it is, the one advantage we will always have over these guys is we have them outnumbered, and they know it.
Absolutely.
And that is their biggest fear. And that's why they go to such pains to keep the truth from us. That's why because if we knew the truth, everybody would have a pitchfork and rope, and they'd be, we'd be looking at the nearest post from the, who was swinging in the wind, twisting.
Absolutely.
So that's reality, and the Constitution gives us that prerogative. We have to take back our government. If there comes a time that we need to take it back, we have the ability and we have the authority given to us by the Constitution to do exactly that. And that's what they're afraid of.
And there's no doubt about that, Paladin. And what people don't realize, because the politicians don't want people to know this, the Second Amendment is really there so you can have an armed populace that the government is constantly worried about.
Exactly. And, that is, if they ever got our guns, it would be over.
It would be finished.
It would be over. And that has also kept us, we have really not ever been invaded by a foreign country. And that is one of the main reasons, is because all of us are armed. All of us are armed. And so they would be not only fighting our military, they would be fighting every family, every residence in the country. I mean, it's a no-win situation. And, that's what's going to keep the UN out of here. If they ever try to meddle in our business, they're going to have the people to deal with.
Yeah. And our friend Tory is worried that the UN has somehow co-opted the native lands and could use those as a base of operation against us.
And that's true, that they could. But if our military decided otherwise, I think that wouldn't last too long.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Do you think this is floating around? I have to ask you, is Biden really the candidate?
That's a great question. My personal opinion is I do not think he's going to make it. I do. And by make it, I think that it's very likely, or it's very possible, that because of the way they're going to conduct this convention, that they can slip somebody in there and replace him. And it's going to be pretty easy to do. Because, if you remember the conventions, I mean, usually the delegates are already decided before the convention. The convention is just kind of a ceremonial thing, and they call, they go around and they call the state of Michigan, and and the state of Michigan proudly casts its X amount of ballots for so-and-so. Well, we're not going to have that rah pep rally, because they're probably going to do it by Zoom or whatever they're going to do it by. They're probably not going to get together. And so this gives the Democratic Party apparatus the ability to determine that, well, Biden is not going to be the guy. We've got someone else that we want to put in there. And this could be Biden could, he could easily drop out. He could easily have a medical issue. There are a lot of reasons or a lot of ways that they could do that. Now, that was my personal opinion, and I get, that's been my personal opinion for about 3 months. So I'm sticking with that, but I'm going to have to get off riding that horse here pretty soon, because I think that convention's coming up quickly, and it doesn't look like they're going to replace him. But I guess it depends on who he names as his VP candidate, and I guess that's coming pretty soon.
Does. And I am no fan of Joe Biden. I've never been a fan of Joe Biden. I mean, this is a guy, I watch that TV show Supernatural a lot. It's my guilty pleasure. And about 7 years ago, they were making fun of Biden. That's how he's been a dullard forever. But I also have someone in my family that my father, I'll just be honest with you, is suffering dementia. And when I look at Joe Biden, and yesterday you look at that nurse literally leading him to talk, and he rambles on, I'm going to survive to the end of this thing. As much as I try to fight it, my empathy raises up for Joe Biden. He's not well. He's not there. He can't do it.
Right. I had this recollection when this all came, because I didn't think Biden was going to win. I actually thought it was going to be somebody else. I actually thought it was going to be Bloomberg, because I thought they have to have somebody in the middle of the road. If it's not a middle of the roader, they have no chance. And so Biden was their initial middle of the roader, but then he's been pulled left by Bernie and everybody else. So anyway, to get back to the issue with Biden, we wrote in our reports 8 or 9 years ago that Biden had a brain tumor. And I remembered that. So I went back and looked at one of our reports and I found it where we said that Biden had a brain tumor and that it was a problem. And so I may highlight, I may bring that report forward and talk about it again, because we identified that quite a long time ago. And this, what you're talking about, Jeffrey, could very well be the reason that they say, Joe's just, we're not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to run Joe. He's just not physically competent. So we're going to bring somebody else in, and who that would be, I don't know. I mean, you obviously, the first person you think about is the high priestess of Moloch.
Yeah. We talking about Big Mike?
No, no. We're talking about
Hillary. Okay.
Yeah.
The other one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Big Mike.
Oh my.
No, Big Mike. There's no way she could pull it off. She doesn't have the temperament to do it.
Doesn't. She would snap on somebody.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she wouldn't have the temperament to do it. Now she could,
but despite what everybody wants to say, it is constitutionally impossible for Barack Obama to be run for the vice president. It's impossible. It's just constitutionally impossible. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, I guess the constitutional scholars could pick either side and probably debate the heck out of that. But I don't think now he doesn't want to. I don't think he wants to go down that road. I don't think that would be, no. I just don't.
Barry's done. I don't. Done.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Barry will be lucky if he doesn't end up in Gitmo and his 8 years get completely wiped off the face of the earth.
Now, I heard someone say, and it was a very reputable source, but they didn't have the documentation at their elbow to be able to confirm it. Have you heard that at the inauguration there was an exchange between President Trump and ex-President Obama, and President Trump is alleged to have said to Barry, "It'll be like you were never here"?
I know, this is the first time I heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't say that. And a marker that we need to remember is I'm thinking 2011 or 2012, Trump was the one who pursued publicly his birth certificate in Hawaii.
Yes, and I'll make a prediction, Paladin. You may think I'm crazy, but I'm going to make a prediction. By the time Donald Trump leaves office, he will have fully and completely exposed the fraud that was Barack Hussein Obama, his birth, and he will expose him as the greatest travesty ever perpetrated upon the American people.
I second that wholeheartly. I don't think there's any question about that. Don't think there's any question.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's digging it. He's digging. He right now, as we speak, he is digging Obama's grave.
He really is, and with a smile on his face. What happens on November 4th when Donald Trump is reelected president of the United States in a landslide?
Well, the deep state meltdown will be complete. You will probably see a lot of suicides. You will probably see a lot of people trying to leave the country. They will be packing up to leave. Those of them who has not been arrested at that point, because I still think we're going to see some arrests between now and the election, because I thought, and if I digress, pull me back on track, but I thought that we were going to see treason, the traitors, as far as the FBI and the DOJ and the whole FISA and the whole spying on Trump thing. I thought that's what we were going to see, but instead it's the pedophilia that we're seeing, because Maxwell, her being arrested is a marker that we all need to pay attention to, because that means to me that he is going for the jugular rather than try to get him by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. And plus, I mean, one of his first acts as president was the executive order that stated that anyone convicted of child or human trafficking, all their assets are immediately seized.
Right.
So
You
you're
know,
taking them down with a 1-2 punch. That's your big
right.
one too.
Right. And then he did the UCMJ where he basically put it out there that he had the ability to call people back to service if he wanted to. And that's really about the JAG officers to come back and conduct the treason trials.
And the UCMJ is the Uniform Code of Military Justice for those of you that didn't have a chance to serve in our great armed forces. And that's a very, very, very good point, Paladin. A great point there. Do you think, and a lot of people, and I said it even in the chat room, riots, mayhem. For some reason, when Trump wins re-election, I don't see that happening. Am I too optimistic?
No, it'll be done because there's nothing they can do. They can riot all they want to, but if Soros is still around, he'll just be throwing good money after bad. And
Right.
so
Ooh, and he doesn't. One thing Soros doesn't do is waste a lot of money. He wants it to be used effectively.
yeah, and they've been behind ever since Trump got elected. And by behind, I mean that typically they have got things planned out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And this mantra has been beat to death, but nobody expected Trump to win. They all expected it to be Hillary. So they have been behind ever since the election because they thought they had it in the bag. I mean, think about it. Hillary stopped campaigning. And why did she? Well, she didn't need to. She didn't need to go to the swing states because she knew the fix was in. And so she might as well just stay home and, order the bottles of champagne and, make sure that ceiling of glass is easily breakable and all that stuff. And so we're going to see a completely different situation once Trump gets reelected. Man, I'll tell you what, things are going to be happening very, very quickly then.
Do we see a third term from President Trump?
Oh man, I knew you were going to ask me that. And it's funny that we talk about that. That has been discussed, and it was discussed. I was made aware of that. Oh gosh, 3-4 months ago, and my guys referred to it as a reset. And the reason is because Trump has been basically had his 3.5 years, or last 4 years, it will be when we get to the election, stolen from him by the Mueller stuff, the Russia probe, the impeachment, all this nonsense. And I have been told that there's that it's going to be reset back to 2016, where the Republicans have both houses. They have the Senate and they have the House, and Trump will get 8 more years.
I think you're right. I think it really happens. And one thing has always bothered me. I've always had this question in my mind, and I don't think there's anyone else that I know that could answer this question with the expertise that you could. I think about Hillary Clinton in her campaign against Barack Obama when Obama eventually won the nomination. Hillary seemed like she went on that cruise control again, like, oh, I got this. I'm Hillary Clinton. There's no way I can lose. And she made that mistake of underestimating Barack Obama. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but it seemed to me like she made that mistake of underestimating Barack Obama. And she paid for it dearly. And then damned if she didn't turn around and make the same mistake again with Donald Trump.
Well, that's because you try to fix it, and when you get foiled on your fix, you have nothing to fall back on, especially talent. I mean, contrast her with her husband. I mean, one thing you can say about Bill, not now, but back in the day, Bill was, he was very good in front of people. He was very convincing. He had charisma. He had all those things that, would resonate with voters when you consider that really voting up to 2016 was basically a beauty contest. It was,
Right.
It was basically a personality test. It wasn't about charisma, or it wasn't about integrity or honesty or character. It was a popularity contest, and
Yep.
Bill could pull it off, and I got to hand it to him. Bill was very good about that. But of course, that all fell apart by the end of his presidency when we found out that a lot of things that Bill said over his presidency were all lies, and that was exposed by the blue dress and Monica Lewinsky. Then all of a sudden, Bill didn't look so good.
Yeah.
But you contrast him with her, and Hillary. She has no charisma. She has no personality, even though she tries hard. She's she's the high priestess of Moloch, and
she's the anti-Bill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so that's where she's at, and the thing of it is, it was interesting because in 2008, if you remember, Obama basically had the delegate count before the convention, and she hadn't conceded yet. And that year they had the Bilderberg conference the Bilderberg conference was in somewhere in the DC area, Virginia or somewhere. And so her and Barack went and they cut a deal with Hillary to get her to stop, and they're going to give her the Secretary of State. And so she agreed to it. And, we'll give you another shot after Barack's done with his 8 years. You'll still have another shot at presidency. So take this deal, be a gracious loser, and come back and try again. And she took the deal. She got Secretary of State. And
Yep.
and so we know what happened then with Secretary of State. She turned that into a jackpot for the Clinton Foundation.
She did. She made a lot of money on that. Have you personally met Hillary Clinton, Paladin?
I have not. One of my guys has, but I have not.
Now, I met her briefly. I'll tell you a quick story about Bill Clinton too, but I met Hillary briefly. Tories met Hillary a couple of times, and another person in the chat room said they've met her. And the thing that blew my mind is when Tori told me the same thing that I noticed, that she smells like sulfur.
Yeah.
She literally does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's the most, and of course, in supernatural lore, if you saw
what
sulfur, you're a demon.
And that's right. I mean, that's right. That's exactly right. And I have heard that too.
As far as Clinton, I don't have a lot of connections, but I did have a guy who was first assistant to the chief of staff of Newt Gingrich. And, Newt, and was it Newt? It was Newt. Newt was in Speaker of the House with Slick Willie, with Bill. And they would have lunch with each other, just Gingrich and just Clinton. And Gingrich would come out of the meeting wanting to do what Clinton wanted to do. And they had to stop sending him in there by himself. That's how good Bill Clinton was.
Yeah.
Literally.
Bill. Yeah. I mean, you got to hand it to him. Bill was very good at that. He was, I mean, that's why they called him Slick Willie.
Yeah. He was. And here's something, and this is a weird question, but you look at Bill Clinton, look at Ellen DeGeneres, look at you can go down a list of celebrities that 6 months ago, they were looking great. Today, they look like death warmed over. And of course, our banter in this genre is, let's just say there's a substance that they used to be able to get freely and with no problem that now they can't get. And this substance is having some type of a reaction to the way they look today. What's your thoughts on that?
Surely you don't mean adrenochrome.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's obvious. Now, I will say that, those people spend, before they go on TV, they spend, 20, 30, 40 minutes in the chair getting made up, like the glamour shots that you pay for with your wife or girlfriend, once a year as a birthday present or something, where she gets those shots. But that aside, what you're seeing is the meltdown of these people. And we're hearing now that there's issues with Ellen. I mean, how many TV shows have been canceled? I mean, they're starting to fall. There's some now, question about whether Ellen is going to continue. They're blaming it on some workplace abuse or something like that. But
hostile environment.
Yeah. They're going to come up with all kinds of excuses, but you're going to see more and more of this. I mean, was it Jimmy Kimmel who's going to take some time off?
It is.
Yeah. So
Johnny Depp, another one of the guys.
You're going to see this. You're going to continue to see this stuff where they're going to try to get ahead of it. But the cat's off.
Not looking great.
Yeah.
But dude, Tom Cruise is still Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one is really surprising. Maybe
I love
those.
Tom Cruise movies. I'm hoping he's the exception, Paladin. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, the thing of it is, maybe those Scientology guys have some secret that we
They
all
might
don't
have
know
some,
about.
and I met Tom, and he was so cool to me. I'm hoping that he's the exception, and anyway, it doesn't really matter, but it's just kind of
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Now, in the unlikely event that all hell breaks loose and something happens, and somehow Donald Trump loses this election, is it time to leave the United States if that happens?
No, I think if that should happen, I think that is when you will see the conservatives out on the street
Oh, I see.
because
That'll be the beginning of White Lives Matter.
right, that'll be the beginning of a real. I don't even know that it'll be a quote unquote civil war. I think that's when you'll see a real revolution.
Wow. I don't think it's going to happen, but
I don't either. I don't either, Jeffrey. I don't.
I really don't. And I just can't. And I say this all the time. Everybody's talking about it's bad and getting worse. I really do believe that things are going to be so much better than we can ever imagine, and it's sooner than we think. And I see the next 10 years in this country as probably as great a 10 years as we've ever had in this nation. I really do.
And I agree with you 100%. There's no
I
doubt about
really
it.
do. And there's not many of us that are saying that, Paladin, not at all.
Well, I think you have to see past what's going on now because I started saying this, I don't know, probably the beginning of the year that we're going to have some pain that we're going to have to go through
Yeah.
because this is like a scratch that we got and we didn't put in the old days, methylate or whatever, that stuff that would just
Yeah.
burn,
It would burn the hell out of you.
yeah, that would
the
just
red
burn
stuff.
and burn and burn.
No,
But
it doesn't hurt that bad.
yeah, but old dad says, now be a man,
Yeah.
be a man. This is the way we deal with this. And
My dad just said rub dirt on it, but my mom would put that whatever that starts with an M. I can't say it either.
yeah, methylate or whatever it was.
There it
But
is.
anyway, okay, so you have that cut, you don't deal with it, right? So it gets worse and it gets infected and it festers and it does all that. And pretty soon you're gonna have to have part of your arm cut off.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we are. And there's
Mercurochrome.
mercurochrome. There we go. So the problem is what happens is we have let this has gone on so long now. It's like something inside you that's turned into cancer. And now, if you would have treated it early on, it would have been no problem. But now you've got to go in, you've got to cut it out, you've got to go through radiation, you've got to go through all this other nonsense. And that's the pain that we're going through right now. And that's because we didn't take care of this.
Yeah.
So hopefully this will be well documented in the future so that everybody that comes behind us that wants to keep this republic, once we get it restored, this will be a lesson to them to not let it get away, not get complacent, not be concerned about yourself. You need to be concerned about your family, your community, and your country in that order, and you need to stick with that. And so your priorities can't get screwed up again. We can't let them get us into these distractions that we talked about early on in the show. We have got to stay focused on that because if we do, we can evolve as human beings and our lives will be more than we could ever imagine. They will be so full. They will be so rewarding. We will be so wealthy. Our souls will be wealthy. And we measure that by money, and we're using the wrong yardstick.
We are.
It's not about that. It's not about what you can accumulate. It's not about that. It's about service to others. It's about improving your community, because if everybody improves, then everybody has a better life, and we can all achieve things that we can't even conceive of at this point.
Absolutely. And Lady Justice alluded to this much earlier in the chat, and it caught my eye, and I have it written down. I think that after President Trump wins a re-election, it's not going to be just more of the same, but I really see a whole new system beginning to take place, a whole new governmental system beginning to take place. Call it a reset, whatever you want to call it. But we got to remember there's deep state on the Republican side just as much as there's deep state on the Democratic side. Well, maybe not just as much, but they're both there. So I hope that we will see not only a third, maybe a fourth, or a second, maybe a third Trump term, but we'll see maybe new parties emerge, maybe a whole new political system emerge, and certainly a new financial system. Do you hold out those hopes?
Oh, yeah, I do. I do know there's going to be a new financial system that's in the works right now that's going
Yep.
forward. So that we have that to look forward to. I would like to see 6 or 7 parties emerge, and they all be treated equally because they've kind of tried to control the Democrat or
Yep.
Republican. And so I would like to see 6 or 7 parties, and I would like to see representatives from all of those parties go to Washington. So nobody has a majority. So they are forced to come up with legislation that covers everybody, because that's what a republic is. You know, a democracy is a 51-49. If the 51% win, then they get everything they want. But if you have a blended Congress and a blended Senate, think about it. You're not going to have a majority. No party is going to have a majority. So they are going to be forced to work together so that everybody is included in the legislation. Otherwise, it's not going to pass. It's not going to pass. I mean, think about that. Everybody has to, because it will be an equal vote at that point. When you've got
Let me
6 or
float
7. Yeah,
Let me
go
float
ahead.
this past you, Paladin, and we'll wrap this up. I know I want to be respectful of your time, but I read a certain book. I'm not gonna mention the book, but when I look at our government right now, you've got right now it's President Trump and it's Nancy Pelosi, but those names are interchangeable, and it doesn't matter who gets elected to be president. We elect this guy president, and maybe someday a lady. We elect them president, and they've made these promises, and we want them to do them. But they can't enact the agenda that they were elected to enact because there's a party that's opposing them. That's problem number one. Problem number two is if we elect Trump because Trump wants to do this and Trump doesn't do this, he can always say, well, I couldn't do it because of them. What if we had a system where we did have 6 parties, but one of those parties held the president and the other presidency, and the other 5 parties were strictly counselors or strictly advisory. So when the one person in charge makes the call, that's where the buck stops, and we sit back and watch. And if guy or lady who's running it, who makes the call, their thing doesn't work, we know who to blame. We know what didn't work. He can't point here. He can't point there. It was you that messed up. That way, there's some accountability. That way, the buck stops somewhere. And let's say they have a 4-year term, maybe a midterm. If they're really crazy, you can call a special election. I don't know. I just like to see a place where somebody's accountable, can do, number one, what they say that we elected them to do, and number two, that they're accountable for the win or the loss. Is that total craziness?
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be some sort of accountability for them, and I don't, I haven't given that a whole lot of thought. I like your train of thought there, because we do need that. I think, I actually think that term limits would go a long way into straightening out Congress, because
Absolutely.
we have too many people getting elected to Congress. They go in and their net worth is $500,000, and 2 years later it's 5 million, and 4 years later it's 50 million, and 10 years later it's 100 million, and 30 years later it's 500 million. And how does that happen when they're only making $176,000 a year? How does that happen? And see,
illegally, that's how it happens.
Yes, and that is the system. And another thing that we need to do, and I'm all for amending the Constitution with term limits. I'm also amending the Constitution that any law passed by Congress applies to Congress as well.
100%.
Okay, so there are things that I think we could do with the Constitution that would take care of a lot of these things. But again, you've got to get the right people in Congress to do that. But if you got people that actually, I mean, if you go back to the birth of this country, I mean, the representatives that went to Congress, that went to Washington, of the 13 colonies, and then the states grew. I mean, they were farmers, and they were guys who ran a market, and this was
nobody of any morality would ever want to be a professional politician back in the day.
Right. I mean, these were people that they represented their state or their district. They went to Washington.
Ooh, Paladin, that's why we're not of and by and for the people anymore.
Right, right. And so they went there and they did their job, and then they came back to their community and they went back to work. And they had to answer to their community.
And they knew they'd have to live by the stuff they were passing.
Exactly.
Whoa,
Exactly.
what a difference it makes in your mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we need to get back to that. There is, I mean, the Congress has got way, way, way too much power. We need to dial
Absolutely.
them way, way, way back. Term limits would go a long way to
Well, let's
doing that.
start. We've got eight-year term limits in the executive branch. Roll it out for the legislative and the judicial.
Yes, I agree, especially the judicial.
Absolutely.
Honestly, of the three branches, to me, the judicial is the most dangerous.
And can I say this? I mean, I saw Weekend at Bernie's. The first one was funny. The next 6 or 7 they made weren't that funny. I think we're on Weekend at Ginsburg's number 15 by now. Come on, man. Let her go. Let her lay down.
Clone lives matter.
Oh my gosh, it's so terrible. Last question. Somebody asked this. I've never heard anybody ask you this before. Have you ever had any remarkable paranormal experiences, Paladin?
I have.
Will you tell us about it on the way out?
Oh, sure, sure. I've actually had, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I guess they're paranormal. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up to confirm that. But one of them was down in I went on a college field trip down to Mexico City.
Ooh.
And we went to the pyramids, Teotihuacan. And you can actually there's this, it's actually called the Avenue of the Dead, I believe. But anyway, it's this big long street, and at the end of that street is the Pyramid of the Moon, which is smaller than the Pyramid of the Sun. That's at a 90-degree angle from the Avenue of the Dead. Well, anyway, so, and you can actually, unlike in Egypt, you can at Giza, you can actually walk up to the top of those pyramids. So I walked up to the top of the Pyramid of the Moon, and I was facing the Avenue of the Dead. And of course, you can see ruins on each side of that avenue that are at various stages of excavation. And you know, all of us went up to the top. There was about 20 students in all, and all of us went up to the top. And then we kind of sat there, and you know, everybody got bored, and they, you know, started going down. And I stayed up there, and I just started breathing and sort of closed my eyes, and that whole place came alive.
Ooh.
And it came alive, and I was back in the time when Montezuma was ruling, and the markets came alive, and they were filled with people. And it was, you know, it lasted for maybe, I don't know, a couple 2 or 3 minutes. It was really amazing. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where when you have that kind of an experience, initially you're just sort of into it. I mean, you're just sort of experiencing it. And then when your brain kicks in and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Boom, it's gone. It leaves just as quick as it came. So we can all achieve those. Now, the second time, another thing I want to, the second one or another one, the second one, I guess I'll say in order here. I was on the beach in Santa Monica. I had just taken my PI test. I was
private investigator.
Yes. You got to take one of those in California. It's one of the few states where you actually have to take a test and pass it. Most states, if they even have a licensing thing, the only thing you have to do is do a print card, and as long as you don't come back, you know, with all kinds of felonies on your record, you get you pay your fee and you get a license. But in California, you have to take a test. So I had just taken my test. I got a towel. I went down to the beach, and I'm laying on my back, and I was just feeling the sun in every part of my body. And so I don't know, I just cleared my mind, and I got into the sun, and I just tried to visualize the sun rays going completely all the way through my body. And the next thing I knew, I felt like I was about 4 feet off the towel. You know, I guess out of body, if you want to call it that. And, you know, and I'm just kind of there, and I'm kind of enjoying it. And once again, I had this thought that I wonder if anybody sees me levitating 4 feet off my towel. So I look around and all of a sudden, boom, I go back into my body. So that was one experience. And then the third experience was really pretty creepy. I had a good friend of mine in college, and he moved to San Diego. And I went out to see him after college, after I got out of college, and spent a week with him. And he had this place in Del Mar, and it was kind of hard to get to. It's really a long story, and I'll shorten it up. But anyway, so a few months after that, he got murdered.
Ooh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and so I guess it was probably almost 10 years. And it was actually the night I was on a trip with one of my friends. We took one of those cross-country trips where you spend about 3 weeks on the road and, go down, the southern part and go up through California, the northern part, and go through, come back the northern way or whatever. And you see friends and you just spend all kinds of time. Well, so we had dinner in Del Mar. Matter of fact, it was in an Italian restaurant. We watched the election. Bush Sr. got elected. So it was 1989, November of 1989. So we get in the car and I said, hey, let's go. I want to go see if I can find my friend's house in Del Mar. So she said, okay. So anyway, we're driving around and it's, I'm used to the checkerboard, the north, south, east, west kind of thing, right? The really easy stuff. Well, out there in California, as you know, it's windy and it's all kinds of things. So he used to mess with me when we used to go out that week when I stayed with him. He used to, go out one way and come back another way. And about halfway through the week, he would say, okay, tell me how to get home, right? Because he had a Porsche and he'd say, okay, tell me how to get home. And I'd always get lost. So I thought, okay, let me see if I can find his house. So
That's great.
So she said, okay, yeah, I'll be your huckleberry. So anyway, we go into the section and it's just right across from the beach. It's sort of a hilly area there. And I'm driving around and I sort of stopped to get my bearings. And I realized that I've stopped right in front of his old house. And at that moment, at that moment, he is sitting beside me in the car, in the passenger seat. And we have a conversation. And it was just amazing. And it was just like I was in a fog, but we had a conversation. And he said some things to me that only he and I would know about. She didn't even, the lady that I was with that went with me on this trip, she didn't even know him. She had never met him. He was long gone by the time she came into my life. So she had never met him. So we had a conversation and he started laughing. He said, you never could find my house. And I'm like, man, I said, I found it this time. And he says, yeah, well, you're just lucky. And so he had, one thing, an MFer that he used to call me, and we used to, we had so we have that conversation. And then all of a sudden he was gone. So she's back in the front seat. And I said, did you see that? And she says, yeah. And I said, well, where were you? And she says, I was in the back seat watching you guys talk.
Wow.
So I was really shaken, and we went down to the beach, and I probably, I don't know, cried for about 15 or 20 minutes because he was a good friend. And she was very, I don't know, very spiritual. I mean, she was, sort of a teacher at that point from a spiritual standpoint. And so I asked her questions, and I said, what was that all about? And she said, well, he probably realized that you had not let him go, because I always, after I heard that he got murdered, I was always like, because he was into some things that he shouldn't have been into, and he was running sort of with the wrong crowd. And it was always, I guess, a hopeful side of me always thought, Well, maybe he just faked his death to get away from these people, right?
Mm.
And so I would always threaten to go out there and do the investigation and see if I could find him. And I bet all this kind of stuff. And she said, he knew that you didn't let him go. And so this was his way of telling you that it's okay, that you need, you need to let him go. And I go, but he waited 10 years to do this. And she says, no, come on. For him, it's not 10 years. It's probably, a day. He didn't wait 10 years, but when you came back, he was waiting for you so that he could tell you that he is really gone and for you to let him go. And this was his way of telling you goodbye because he never got to do that.
That's an amazing story, Paladin.
Wow.
And once again, in a genre of posers and pretenders, Paladin stands out. Apart from the here today, gone tomorrow, one-hit wonder crowd, he's well-sourced, he's level-headed, he's demonstrably reliable, and he's helping lead the charge against tyranny and disinformation. Paladin, you are a true light guiding us through the storm. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and thank you for sharing a very moving personal experience.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk. I enjoy our chats, and wow, I can't believe you got that out of me. I've never told that in public. I've told a few close friends, but that's it. But I feel safe and protected here, so no problem with that, sharing that with you. And I appreciate the time that you've allowed me to come into your life here and talk with you and talk with your viewers. I appreciate the opportunity, and I just want to thank you very much for the favor that you did me, because that's pretty huge for the book, and I know that the people in Japan appreciate what you did.
Well, Paladin, it's my pleasure. And for Tracy Dyer and all our great moderators, and for the lovely Cynthia, the light of my life, we salute you all for being here, seeking after truth. And Paladin, we appreciate your leadership, your guidance, and we appreciate and we encourage you to stay on the cutting edge and keep informing us, and we'll keep looking for your White Hat reports.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Take care, my friend. We'll see you again real soon.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Thank you for being with us. And remember, now's the time to unindoctrinate yourself.